to my Accident is No Accident podcast. I am your host, Maritza Perez, and we are here today with a woman who has a beautiful energy and is helping others find their path to mindfulness and transformation in their lives. Her name is Miss Michele Schalin. With over
Hi.
Hi Michelle. Did I say your last name correctly?
Close. Close. It's Michele Schalin. Schalin.
Schalin. Okay.
Don't worry. Everybody has a challenge with it. Yeah.
Thank you. With over 3 decades spent coaching, guiding thousands from across the globe in personal development, spiritual growth, and inner transformation, Michelle truly embodies the role as an international speaker, author, mental fitness coach, breathwork facilitator, and meditation guide. She is your ultimate secret weapon against stressors like anxiety or depression, offering expert strategies to conquering mental exhaustion through meditation, mindfulness, and breathwork training methods. And she is originally from Chicago, has lived in different places such as Texas, Florida, Arizona, and Valencia, Spain. Welcome, Michelle. It is an honor and a pleasure to have you on my podcast.
Thank you. It's an honor to be a guest. Thank you for asking.
I love what you're doing. Doing the research of you was very entertaining and really breathtaking. But before we get into everything, I would like to ask you my main question. Michelle, what is your accent and why is not an accident?
My accent is outside of Chicago, and it's not an accident because it's a big part of who I am. My heritage, it's interesting because when I've lived in other countries, I've never picked up any other accent. You know how sometimes people live somewhere else and they all of a sudden start talking. I remember I met a woman years ago when I first moved down to Texas in 1999, and she had a very thick Texan accent. And I asked her, I asked her if she was from here, and she said she was from New Jersey.
Oh.
And I was shocked. I was like, what? You know, because I never picked up. I mean, different people are different, but I've never picked up any kind of other accent in all the different places I've lived.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I'll always be that South Side Chicago girl for sure. I mean, my terminology and the way I think of things and stuff like that. But you know, I've grown so much since then. I am kind of like a different person because I've had so many versions of myself, but it's just like a newer and improved version, you know, every year. I don't know if you read the book Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey. I highly recommend it. And if you listen
Okay.
to the book, it's even better because he reads it and it's special. It's amazing.
Awesome.
And he talks about someone asking him, "Who's your hero?" And he said he had to think about it. And then when he came back and said to the person, he goes, "My hero is me in 10 years." And that's how I like
Yes,
to think of it too. I think that's really cool. Because
that
when
is
I look back
beautiful.
at myself, even a year ago or 2 years ago or 5 years ago, whatever, I sometimes laugh a little bit. I'm happy. I look at my accomplishments and I'm proud and I feel real good about myself and that kind of thing. But I laugh sometimes at maybe where I was on a mindset there or something I did, you know, that I don't because I've grown, you know, and I've healed and continued to grow spiritually and emotionally. And, you know, I'm in a better place than a year ago. So I love looking at that.
And that is beautiful. So your accent is really trying to be better and improved,
Yeah.
and that is reflect in what you do for others as
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
because that is exactly what you do for others.
Yep, yep, yep. And I've always been, I'm just, you know, people say I'm a lifelong learner. I'm like, I just always learn. I love learning. and I have a lot of different things I've done over, I've done a lot of different things in my life, different jobs and stuff like that. But I just always love learning, and when you learn, you change, and life's about change. And I know a lot of people are like, I don't like change. Well, the more you resist change in your life, the more you're going to suffer because
Yes.
life is about change. And this was a thing in my marriage. I was married for 30 years when I finally divorced my ex-husband, and he was a wonderful man, and there was a lot of love there, but he was very resistant to change, and I said this all the time. And as I was growing and changing, he didn't like it because he had to do the same to keep up with me. You know what I mean? And ultimately that didn't happen. So
Oh, wow. 30
yeah,
years is a long time.
yep,
But I like the way you put it. There was still love and there was
yeah,
love in there, but there
yeah,
were changes that
yeah.
couldn't.
I talk
That,
about it in my story because in my book I talk about my story like a Reader's Digest version, and I was very careful and very compassionate about how I spoke about him in our relationship in that. And he's a wonderful man, and he was really great in a lot of ways, but he was so with growing and was very fearful about healing from his past traumas and that. And it just wasn't sustainable for us and became very toxic for both of us, because I
yes.
was coming this way and he was, you know,
Hmm.
and you know, he just wasn't capable of going there. Yeah.
Yes. And it is kind of a grief, but also it's releasing the other person
Yeah.
of
Yeah. It
of
was one of the hardest decisions I ever made. Yeah.
yes, I can
Because,
imagine.
yeah, because I loved him. He was my best friend. He gave me more support than anyone in my life, literally, more than my family.
Yes.
And when I was younger, I felt very alone in the world because of my childhood, the way it was. And when I was with him, I didn't feel alone in the world. I felt like I had backup in my team. I felt alone in our relationship sometimes
Yes.
because it happened, but I didn't feel alone in the world. And so when I left him, I knew that that was going to be a thing. Like a lot of people stay in relationships for longer than maybe what was healthy because they're afraid to be alone.
Yes.
It's not uncommon. So yeah, but that's what I needed to really grow. Yeah.
Exactly. And when we go back, for instance, my parents, they were together until dad set them apart. And then they had good days and bad days. But then when you talk to their generation, the majority of the couples that stay together because there was no even, it didn't cross their mind that
It wasn't an option to leave.
it was not an option exactly.
Yeah. If it was though, they probably more of them would have. Yeah.
Would have done it.
I
Yes.
think I believe that a lot of cultures, it's like death to us part, we're going to stay together forever and all that. And, it's a good idea. But if people change and they don't work together and have healthy communication change together, then it's not sustainable. And at least one person is not going to be happy, you know?
Yes.
And I learned, because we talked about being together forever and all that stuff too. And I've learned that, everybody's not meant to be in your life the whole time. Maybe just a chapter in the book, you know, and learn from those experiences, and see how you grow, and how that person helped you grow, even if it was a very difficult relationship. I have a dedication in my book about that, to the people that I had relationships with that were difficult. Thank you. You helped me grow, even
Yes.
though it was emotionally painful. um that's what it takes a lot to grow to the next stage. Yeah.
And that is beautiful just to realize that you can release that and you can be grateful and thank that person for what they meant to you and
Yeah,
because for what you have become, they were part of that a
that's right.
little.
And every experience in your life. I've a part of my gratitude practice big time in the last 5 years, is to just, for everything that happens to me, the stuff that I don't like, uh, that, something that came out of that made me stronger somehow. There's an exercise I share with people in workshops and my clients is, how you your dialogue, your inner dialogue, how you narrate something. Okay. And the exercise is to pick 3 big events in your life, whether they be something you enjoyed and it was wonderful or something that was really, really difficult, right? 3 events in your life. And first you write down just the facts, nothing but no story, just the facts. The time you write about the event is you write about how difficult it was. Okay. And then the third time you write about the same event, about the benefits and the good things that came out of it. Right. And it's real interesting to see, like, pick events, not all that are positive, at least pick a little bit of mixture in there and see where you can see the positive and the difficult part. I don't like to say good and bad. I'm very careful with how I use my words.
Yes.
And that's a really good exercise to see when you use different words in describing a story or an event or whatever, an experience in your life, that you feel differently. So then I tell them, think about how you feel when you're writing it, and then read it out loud too. And pay attention to how your body responds when you say those words out loud, the different versions. It's a really good exercise.
I love it. I'm writing it down.
It's a really good exercise because it's very, people really understand, once a person feels something emotionally or physically, once they feel it, then they have a lot more empathy and compassion for themselves or the other person, and then they understand
Yes.
it. They really understand it. And when they get that deep understanding of feeling it emotionally or physically, then they're more apt to make change. They're more motivated and more dedicated to maybe do things to make changes in their life. And sometimes those are things you have to do on a daily basis. And, we all know that implementing new daily habits are challenging for people, and so
Yes.
when you have a little understanding, have a deep feeling of understanding and empathy and compassion, whether it be for you or for another person, it just motivates you, inspires you to be more dedicated to whatever changes you're trying to make.
And I love this because that is the path to become mindful. And mindfulness is not of being perfect all the time. It's just to be present in your mind and knowing there will be good things or there will be bad things, but those are things that you need to be thankful for.
Right.
And by doing this, it is a great exercise because when you list the facts, then the bad things, you're releasing the bad energy, and then you say the good things and you're giving the opportunity to say, you're right.
Yes,
Thanks to this event,
that's right.
it
This is
is,
what happened. I mean, yeah, I mean, one of the hardest experiences I've ever had was when I lived in Spain, Valencia, Spain, for 3.5 years. And it was hard for me because I walked into a situation where I couldn't have been more alone. So I left my ex-husband and then immediately went to Spain. And I went there alone and was learning the language, right? I had a beginner, an advanced beginner level, but, understanding was real difficult. And I used to say when I walked around the street, it reminded of me being in a Charlie Brown episode. Do you remember
yes.
Charlie Brown episode with
Wow, wow, wow.
that's right. Whoa, 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 whoa. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. And when I said that to my Spanish friends, they didn't understand it because they only knew Snoopy. They didn't know Peanuts. They didn't
Oh,
know the
yes,
Charlie
yes,
Brown.
yes,
They only
yes.
know Snoopy. They were like, what? And I was like, oh. And so I felt very alone. You can imagine my whole identity. I mean, I walked away from my identity as they didn't know me. They didn't know, and I couldn't even be myself because I couldn't express myself the way I would naturally. You know what I mean? They didn't
Yes.
know I was funny or smart or my whole identity around being a mom and a business owner and involved in the community and my children. I mean, all of that was like boom, you know. I mean,
Yes.
yes, I still had my children, but they were back in the States, you know. I was totally alone.
Yes.
And then the second half, I was there for 2 years, and then the last year and a half, I was there during the quarantine, and I had a very, very severe lockdown in my room for 7 weeks, and I had a studio apartment with no balcony and no yard,
Oh,
and all I could do was go to the grocery store and back a block and a half away. And I wasn't fortunate enough to have a dog where I could walk a dog because that was another option you can have. So I
yes.
didn't touch anything living or go outside in nature or anything for like 7 weeks. And so that's what my business and my book and everything came out of that experience. So that was a very difficult experience, but a lot of really great things came out of that. And the story behind the flash mob that I did to the Cupid Shuffle when I went on my book.
Yes.
So when I was in lockdown, I, like a lot of people, I did a couple dancing videos, and I did a dancing video in my to the Cupid Shuffle. And what I did was I was very lucky when I was locked down because I opened up these big shutter windows that I had, very big, okay? And I opened them up real big, and I recorded this video, and I specifically in mind to stop it at 7 o'clock, 7 p.m., because I knew that all the Spaniards would be at their windows and their balconies clapping for the medical personnel at 7 p.m. They did it every single night.
Yes, I remember that. Yes.
Started in Italy, and then they picked it up. So I knew that they would. I mean, I did with them, okay. But this night I was like, okay, I'll stop this video when they start clapping, and then pretend like they're clapping for me.
Ah,
So
that's
if you watch,
beautiful.
if you watch the video, you'll see the very end. Yeah, watch all the way to the end. You'll see I'm like, thank you, thank you. And then I take my video and I take my phone, I bring it out to the window, and everyone's like, rah! And I like show down the block and stuff. And my American friends, when I show them for the first time, I don't tell them, like, oh, look what I did. And they really think they're clapping for me
Yes,
all the way down the block and everything. It's hilarious. And I go, no, no. And I explain what it was.
yes, yes.
After I did that, I was just like on fire to do a flash mob for the first time to the Cupid. And then we had restrictions for 14 months and I couldn't do it. And so I came back to the US. And when I knew I was going back for my book tour and I was going to visit, I'm like, I'm organizing this flash mob. And so I finally was able to do it on the beach of Valencia, Spain.
And that's the one that I saw on
Yeah.
your.
So, and then and it was funny because at first it was just like, oh, just it'd be a fun thing, right? And then when I was getting my book tour, getting ready and everything, I thought, oh, I have a marketing brain because I've been involved in that for many years. I'm like, oh, well, we could do this kind of as a promotional video, make it fun, and then have like, showing my little party, the book party. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm gonna make it. So then I got like a really nice, professional videographer to take care of it. And we made little shorts. We didn't make shorts for YouTube. Oh, I should do that actually. But we did short ones for the Instagram, and we did. It worked. It got a lot of attention, and people came, of course, but it got a lot of attention from my book, and I heard people talking about it and going, "Oh, I don't know who this woman is, but I think that's really cool that she did that. I want to check out her book and stuff like that."
Yes,
So
and it was beautiful because the spontaneity of everybody then suddenly one lady decides to, she had something in her hands and she decided to put it on the floor and start dancing. And then somebody else, more people started
yeah,
dancing.
we ended up having like 40 people. We had like 13 people to start. Like
Yes,
then you kind of plan it like that, and then all of a sudden, I because that's the key. You got to make the dance easy. Okay, so people aren't intimidated to join. And in America, Cupid Shuffle was really, really popular.
yes,
Yeah. So there was some tourists,
yes.
and yeah, it was really great.
And the majority were women, but then men started to join as well, and
Yeah,
I loved it. And
yeah.
that was not the only thing that you did on your book tour. There were many creative things that you did in every, well, not in everyone, but in the ones that I saw that you have on your YouTube channel and the website.
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, when I went on my book tour, which was October, for 6 weeks, started in October and mid-November, I went to different parts of Spain, went to Germany and Italy, and then I came back to Key West. And so basically, when I was planning the tour, I was reaching out to book stores and seeing if I could, do a little talk or signing, that kind of thing. Well, it was all crickets. Okay. They weren't paying attention to me at all. They like, who is this person? And, and I was trying to email because it was, overseas. And so it was really difficult. So I took a different take and I was like, okay, I'm going to contact yoga studios because I've been facilitating these breathwork and sound healing baths for 2 years now. And I've been doing it for 4 years. Holotropic breathwork, and it's very, very powerful. And they were very receptive. So I ended up doing these sessions 5 different times in both Spain and Germany. And it's new to them. And so it was really beautiful to share that kind of experience because a lot of people had very, very powerful emotional
Yes.
breakthroughs and stuff like that with it. And yeah, I love doing that. That was great. And then
And, and
I just did a lot of fun adventures and stuff. I,
yes.
I went to Berlin just because everybody told me when I lived in Europe that Berlin was amazing. And I'd been to Germany before, but never Berlin. So I went to Berlin and I did 2 bike tours. I like to go on bike tours if you're there for a short time to learn about it. And that was very, very emotional because I went to, by the East Side Gallery, which is the mural, all the murals with the Berlin Wall and the Holocaust Memorial. And
Wow.
it was and I was posting throughout all my adventures. I was doing a lot of posts and videos and really good talking points about what was happening and who I was visiting and what experience I had as a part of the promotional tour as well. And a lot of people were following it. And I knew a woman from an organization called Costa Women. It's for expats that live in Valencia, or not, excuse me,
Oh,
expats that live in Spain, Costa Women. And she saw posting on, we had an event together when I was in Spain. And she said, oh, I want to write about your adventures in Berlin because Berlin has gone through an amazing metamorphosis. And I thought it'd be really great to tie your book in, Mindful Metamorphosis, into that kind of,
yes, yes.
line. And so I sent her videos and pictures, and she wrote up a whole article to put up on her website. Yeah, it's really well done. She did a great job. Yeah.
Amazing. So one of the things that you talk about in your book is how you went through different traumas and releasing them. And the idea behind all of this was to create balance. You want to talk a little more about that?
Sure. Yeah. So what happened to me was I had a back surgery when I was 20 in 2014. And before that, I didn't have any balance in my life. I was just constantly go, 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 do, do, do. And as a child, I started doing that because that was a way I got attention from my parents. They were wonderful people, but they were very caught up in their own stuff and they didn't know how to be really good parents. And we didn't get a lot of attention. We were latchkey kids. And so I just did things to get their attention, good work at school, chores around the house. And so that kind of turned into a very workaholic mentality. So I had this message. They didn't say it to me, but I got the message that I was worthwhile and lovable when I was productive. So the more productive I could be, the more worthwhile and lovable I was, right? And it just never was enough, never stop, never stop. And even though I was eating good and exercising and all that kind of stuff, I did not have good balance this way, right? And take care
Okay.
of myself and have downtime. And so in 2014, the universe gave me a big sign and made me slow down, made still, basically. I mean, I had
Yes.
back surgery, I couldn't move. And so I learned when I was upset or felt stressed after the surgery that you get chemicals come into your body, cortisol an adrenaline come into your body. And you know how you get maybe a little uncomfortable in your back or your neck or your stomach
Yes.
sometimes when that happens. Well, after my surgery, it was very painful when that happened. Okay. Like all of a sudden I had a lot of pain in my neck and my back. And so I realized, oh my God, I got to do something about this because this is tough. And so I got into yoga to stay fit. Decades of workout queen. I mean, I was a fitness instructor when in the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. And so I wanted to stay fit, and I wanted to keep my core tight for my back health, you know. And I wanted to learn to meditate so I could control my thoughts more and not have, be able to control that, just all of a sudden feeling stressed and all of a sudden all these stress hormones coming in. And so I was led into meditation for pain management. And my initial introduction was through yoga. So I was doing moving meditation, which is really great for a lot of people because of our body is so overstimulated by how we live with technology and just a modern way of living that's one of the reasons why people have a hard time just sitting still and meditating right away. So a nice introduction is, guided meditation because it gives you prompts to follow. You don't have to blank your mind or anything like that. And moving while you're doing it. And so that really was my big introduction to getting more balance in my life and healing, because all of a sudden a boatload of suppressed emotions all my life, because that's what I was taught, started coming up because I was going inward for the very first time in my life. And so I continued on that path, and that opened up all kinds of other possibilities for me as far as breath work and energy work and grounding, which is another way to balance your body and regulate your nervous system by just putting your feet on the ground with no shoes. You actually absorb negatively electrodes into your body. It's a way that the earth actually helps us heal, and it's all science. So I just continued to heal and continued to have more balance. When there's occasions where I start to do a little too much, and I pay attention to when my body's talking to me now, and to shut up all the time like we tend to do. Okay, Michelle, what's going on? And I'm feeling a little anxiety, or my body's starting to feel uncomfortable. I'm like, what's going on? What are you doing? What are you thinking? Where's the balance? And then I can pull back right away. I think that a real good gauge of your growth is how fast you can get back on track. When you're growing and you're getting balance in your life, which is a big part of growth, okay? It's a healthy growth. And when you're growing, we tend to think that it's this, continual upward, that we're going to grow, grow, grow. And then if we don't feel good, or we have, times where we're getting emotional, where it's challenging and it's, uncomfortable, we think we're doing something wrong. Or
Yes.
we talk about falling back, or I slip back, or I fall back, or we're trying to label things a lot of times. When you start to feel sad about something, or you don't know sometimes you don't know what it is, and you're trying to put a label on it. Well, why am I feeling this way? Because you don't like it, right? You want to get out of
Yes.
it. And
Yes.
why am I feeling this way? Well, sometimes you're not going to know what it is. And that's just a part of healing, because as you're growing and healing and doing these holistic practices, energy comes up, and emotions are energy, and they just may come up and you don't know what it's about. I was in a women's circle. I love going to the women's circles. And two ladies that are into all these holistic practices, and they were having a harder time. They were having some difficult emotions and feeling a little depressed or whatever. And they were very frustrated about it, because they were just like, well, what else do I need to do? I'm meditating, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. They're all, talking about the good things that they're
Yes.
practicing in their life. And I'm still feeling this way, kind of thing. Like, what, and and this is how we're programmed and conditioned to feel, like to think. But in actuality, it's just about a growing. It's just sometimes you're going to have ebb and flow. You know, your body's like a river, and it needs to get that energy flow on a regular basis to have balance, to feel balance, and operate properly. And when I actually just had a moment yesterday where I felt sad around circumstances in my life and holidays and stuff like that. And I didn't like it, but I was like, I didn't resist it. That's the key. The
Okay.
less you resist the feeling, the better you're going to feel. If you resist it and you push it back down, then you get a bunch of anxiety and depression and pain and illness and, problem sleeping and all that kind of stuff. When you learn to be able to be with the emotion and just let it be without trying to push it down, because we're visioned to take a pill or get into an addiction or get a distraction, anything to, our biggest problem is we're uncomfortable with being with uncomfortable feelings. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Or we can develop that being comfortable with the uncomfortable feelings, we will be healthier and heal faster. And so it's not, just because you're doing all those things, it doesn't mean that you're going to be happy and great for the rest of your life and never have a sad moment or a fearful moment. No, that's just not going to happen. So, things come up and you're like, oh, okay, what's this about? And let it out. Crying is one of the biggest tools we have to heal. This, oxytocin, it produces serotonin, both real calming and loving kind of, afterwards you cry, you feel good, right? But
Yes.
we're cruel to ourselves because of how we're conditioned by, I'm not going to let myself cry, or I'll permit myself to cry, and it's a human emotion. That's a cruel way of treating ourselves, to say, you can't do this, and it's a great way to release energy and heal. So I'm a big fan of that. And as far as, like I was talking about, you think you're going to get better and better and never, we also have, neuron connections in our brain, and they hold on to programming of thinking and behaving for years. And so when you start to change and you start to do meditation and mindfulness exercises and learn to have more control over your thoughts when you go into the future and start freaking out and having anxiety, or going to the past and ruminating about something that you haven't accepted or forgiven, um, all of those things are in your brain and connections. Okay. And so when you start having the new way of behaving and new way of thinking, sometimes these old neuron connections will pop up because they're still there. And so the process is developing the new neuron connections so they're stronger and they take hold more. Okay. And that's what happens, but it's a
Okay.
process. It's training. Okay. It's just like physically training your body, you're training your brain. All right. And I know I'm talking to the Western world, so I talk about the science about it all the time. It's called neuroplasticity. And this has been researched and studied for, two decades now. And now more and more doctors and therapists are slowly starting to talk about it more. But there's a
Yes.
lot of resistance to it because they don't get this training. It's certainly not happening in the medical schools. The
Yes.
pharmaceutical companies fund the medical schools. Okay, so there's a lot of, where there's no money, there's no attention sometimes. But
Exactly.
the demand is getting bigger for people to get relief. And so, the floodgates are opening up, and you can go to YouTube and all kinds of different platforms and see all this information with experts and neuroscientists talking about this. This is all science. It's not just, a theme. It's not just a theory or something. No, they've studied the brain and they know that this is true.
It's
So
because we are designed to heal ourselves.
that's right. That's right. But we've been taught different in the Western world. In the Eastern world, yes, that's what they're taught. In the Western world, that's not what we're taught. We have a totally different model, and our healthcare is profit off our people. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yes,
true.
yes, it's
And
true.
so especially in the United States, I mean in Europe, they have socialized healthcare and they're there to help the people. But in the United States, it's like we're capitalism on crack, and so our education and our medical care is really to profit off people instead of help them.
Yes, yes.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to beat up the Western. There's a lot of great things that the Western medicine does. I mean, I like to get my blood work done and X-ray active, and if I get a break or something, I'm going to go, get it fixed and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to emotional health, they've not
Mhm.
done such a good job. They don't go to because they're taught to treat the symptom, not the root of the problem.
Yes,
So to treat the symptom, they're just giving us pills, right?
yes. And
And
sometimes it takes 4 or 5 tries until you get the one that works for you. In the meantime, you have all these chemicals in your body.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, there's a really great, and in my book, I talk a lot, I give a lot of references to documentaries, TED Talks, books, and everything from all these different experts and how I learned from a lot of different people. And there's a really great documentary called Take Your Pills Xanax on Netflix. And it basically, it's really good. And it basically talks about, it just illustrates where we're at, why we're at where we're at, with prescription medication so prevalent, amongst all ages. And it shows people trying to get off them and how difficult it was. And they talk a lot about that these pills, and there's no judgment at all. I mean, anybody that is really hurt and they want to get relief, I get it. But they were created for short-term use. They were created
Yes.
to get out of, get through a rough so you can function, okay? And then get off it. But it's turned into this, okay, I have this label now and I need this drug for the rest of my life to help me manage that label. And so that's what's happening. And so these pills that were never meant to be used long term are now being used by people for decades. And, people are getting more educated on gut health, right? Oh, that's not good for my gut. But now it's like, no, think about what that's doing to your brain. Okay. So
Yes.
you're basically dulling neuron connections in your brain.
Yes.
Okay.
So
That's what it does.
I'm going to tell you, I think I am the best example. I'm going to tell you a little story about what happened to me. I went through divorce as well after a 15-year relationship with my ex-husband. And it was breathtaking because I felt alone and I felt like the world had ended. And it was like, now what? My daughter was 18 months old, and I was like, oh my Lord. And I lived with my mom um, as well. So I'm like now in charge of these two people, and I felt totally alone and very sad. Then going to therapy, and I was already going to therapy and everything, but it didn't work. But then I continued for myself, and then I was very sad. I was extremely sad, of course. I ended my relationship of 15 years, the person that we were supposed to be together for life. And I was very sad. Then I got prescription for circumstantial depression, but I wasn't depressed. I was sad. And I was very, very, which is totally different than being depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And I got this medicine, and suddenly I started having anxiety and having feelings of like people will talk to me, and I had no feelings at all. Like they're like, That's funny," and I'm like, "Yeah, it is funny."
Mm-hmm.
And walking like if I was a robot. And finally, one of my friends said, "What are you on? You're like totally not yourself." And I said, "You know what? Ever since I started taking this pill, I feel like I don't have feelings, and I'm Latin."
Yeah, wait, there's something wrong. Yeah,
So my
something very
feelings
wrong
are
here.
like, what?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
sad and I don't cry. Like I go, "Ah!" I'm
Right.
happy and I'm like super happy. Um, so I went back to the psychiatrist and I said, I don't think this is really good. So he did a blood test. He said, well, actually, your serotonin levels are like kind of off the charts and like doing crazy stuff. Maybe you didn't need this pill. And he took it off he needed to take it off little by.
So,
And then I was like, so you're telling me that I needed a blood work? Right. I didn't say that. But I was like, so I need to have a blood work to actually determine whether I have depression or not. And why didn't you do this prior to prescribing me? And that's one of the things that I always tell my friends, like, no, 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 ask the doctor to give you blood work.
yeah, I've never heard anybody say that their doctor gave them blood work before prescribing meds. No.
No. And then you're supposed to, because the serotonin levels and all these chemical levels in your brain will determine what the pill and what pill you need, but sometimes their experience based on the behavior of the person gives the doctor the the right path to say, well, I think you need this prescription. But
Mm.
sometimes the person, like in my case, I was just very sad, and
Yes.
I
It's a very important distinction. Of course you're sad. Your marriage, dissolved and your your situation was hard. Yeah.
yes,
You're going to be sad.
so
That's human emotion. Like let's just get it out and feel it and then move on. I mean, that's what healthy way to
exactly,
do it.
yes,
But when I was, I had a very short 3-day experiment with prescription drugs, which 3 days was nothing, right?
yes,
My when I was going through all these emotions, when I was starting to meditate, it was very threatening to my ex-husband, and he was trying to get me to get medicated because he didn't have to look at his stuff then. He didn't have to work on himself, just medicate me. We were going to a therapist at the time too. The same thing didn't work.
yes,
And if the fix was just to get me fixed, you know what I mean? And the medication will do it, right? So I was feeling pretty desperate, and I reluctantly uh, went to another therapist and told her what was happening and that I didn't really want to do this, and then she was like, okay, we'll just put you on, even though I told her I didn't want to do it, we'll put you on a small dose and see how it goes. And I was doing, the meditation, I was doing yoga, and that's the thing. It's like, okay, it's changing now, but too many times the doctor immediately prescribes a pill instead of saying, do you meditate? Do you go to nature? What's your screen time? What's your AM and PM routine? What's the input around your life? How are you feeling about yourself? What kind of stress you got? Think of that, which is causing a lot of what's happening, right?
yes,
At whatever exercise, there's so many things. And they just prescribe the pill. So I take the pill, and within 3 days, I'm feeling better. Now I know it's not the pill because it takes 2 weeks to get in your system. She told me that. Everybody always tells me.
yes, yes,
And I said to my ex-husband, I said, you know what? I'm feeling better and I'm not taking this pill. I never wanted to take these pills. I'm not going to take it. It's not the pill. And because she said, blah, 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 2 weeks. And so I know it's what I'm doing. I know it's the holistic practices I'm doing that's helping me. And instead of being happy that I was feeling better, angry. He got really angry that I wasn't going to take the fix, you know?
yes,
Yeah. Uh,
yes,
so that's
and
the only experience I've had with it. And like I said, there's no judgment at all. But, all of our lives we're told that we have to keep our brain active, keep learning, get the crossword puzzles, whatever, all the stuff we've been
exactly,
told. As we get older, we'll have less of a chance to have dementia or, Alzheimer's, right? And now we're taking things that dull neuron connections for years.
exactly, and that is not suitable for everyone.
No, and no one for long term. And I actually talk about in the documentary, they talk about that they're concerned about an uptick in Alzheimer's and dementia. Totally makes sense. When I studied for, about brain and neuroscience, it totally makes sense. And I was like, oh my God. And then in my own life, my ex sister-in-law, 62 years old now, she's in a second stage of dementia, and she's been on medication for anti-anxiety and antidepressant for 30 years.
Oh, so that medication probably,
Well, of course, yes. I mean,
yes.
just
I
just
mean,
take the breath. I mean, it dulls your neuron connections. Okay, of course, it's going to affect your brain after you.
exactly. And then this leads me to a little talk, um, not a little, it's a big talk about women, and it's that urgence of the world trying to fix women because it's wrong to feel, it's wrong to cry. If we get mad, we're crazy.
Feel bad, yeah. That's it. We're hysterical.
Yeah, you're just crazy.
Yeah.
Like there is anything that does not meet the criteria
Mm-hmm.
of certain society,
Box.
then it's off the chart and you need to be medicated. You
That's
need
right.
to go to get help. It's your fault. And I think we have been living with "is your fault" for too long.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we were just starting to talk about it off camera, but I was like, wait,
You want to talk about it
because I
out?
wanted, yeah, I wanted to talk about now is kind of changing. Women are kind of waking up.
Mhm. In a big way.
You want to talk about a little bit about
Sure.
what changes
Yeah.
are we seeing in our
Yeah.
societies?
I've always been fascinated with psychology and sociology. I've studied it all my life. And I just have a knack for seeing things on a bigger picture. I see the bigger picture than a lot of people. They don't, I can be very detailed oriented, but I can look at a behavior, a change in the culture, and then I see, oh, in 20 years, this is gonna happen in 20 years. Okay, I'm
Yes.
really good at this. And whether it be a negative or a positive, thing. So when I first moved down to Texas in 1999, I saw my daughter, who was 6 years old, being encouraged by everybody to get into sports. And I was like, right away, I noticed it. Of course, I was not. My generation was not. I'm 60 years old, so no, we were not encouraged to do sports, women, and my mother's generations, of course, no. But I got into working out when I was 18, and I got really into it. I was a fitness trainer. I have a workout for decades, like an athlete, And at 18 years old, I started developing feeling empowered and strong and improved my confidence and the discipline of the training, went over to other parts of my life. Okay. So
Yeah.
I saw her being encouraged to do this at 6 years old, and I thought, wow, she's going to get these benefits as a child. I didn't get these benefits until I was, an adult.
Yeah.
And then I thought, oh, this is going to be a game changer. In 20 years, the women are going to really start being more empowered because I was just thinking that right there. Okay.
Yes.
Fast forward 20 years, we see things happening, right? Now that's not the only thing. Okay. But that was a big one, I believe. Um, and I saw a major difference in her as a child than but of course her childhood was different, but that was a big thing. She got into sports, throughout her whole life. And she developed all those things, it's a generation of women, girls, and even now it goes forward. It's like that now regularly. It's a normal thing now where they're getting these benefits, emotional, mental, and physical benefits as boys did all along. Okay.
Yes.
So that's one thing. Then I saw yoga get more popular and come into the United States about 22 years ago. And I remember it happening. I wasn't into it yet because I was still go, go, go. That wasn't a workout, I think, in my mind, but I know different now. And I thought, oh, this is interesting because I always pay attention to fitness trends because of my background. And I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Well, later when I got into it, I realized that yoga is going inward, going inward, going inward. It's moving meditation. You're holding and you're staying still, which is totally different than how we operate in the rest of our lives mostly, right? And
Yes.
who was going into that more? Women, okay? The majority of women. My breath work and sound healing, same thing, all meditative, very inward, inward, inward. The majority of people going to that? Women.
Women.
I mean, there's more men, but it's still more women, right? And then if you go back, to the 70s and 80s where all the women started getting jobs and become, and so fast forward, all this stuff has made women more independent financially. Collectively, of course, there's a lot of women still dependent on men for their finances, but collectively, women don't need men for that role anymore. Okay. Uh, the protector role, if they're single and they have a lot of friends around them, they've learned that they can use their circle of friends and help them. They'll be just fine. All right. And you've learned, like after being in a relationship for a long time and being alone and scared, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can do this.
It's possible.
So I don't need this guy to survive, but our instinctual way of looking at men was for survival instinct to
Exactly.
provide and take care of us and keep us protected while we take care of the kids, right? Then fast forward to technology, if you want a baby, you don't really need a guy. You can get a sperm donor or whatever. Technology has made sex toys amazing. So That's a whole other thing. Okay. I mean, there's so many things that make it to where the women don't need the men in the same role that they used to. Okay. And so then women, older women are like we are talking, they're leaving marriages that they normally would have never left before, right? And younger girls are staying single for longer or whatever. And then when they're alone, they don't have a partner for a while. They realize they're okay, and they can do this, and they feel stronger now, and they feel happier, and so then they're less likely to put up with bad behavior now. They
Yes.
don't have to put up with that. Okay. So all of these things are happening, and men are freaking out. They're confused. They're looking at their father and their grandfather, and it's a totally different dynamic now. And they're not going inward as much. It's changing, and they're, because it's harder for all of us, to be conditioned not to cry, not to be angry, don't show your emotions, and all that kind of stuff. And it's very damaging and very cruel to humans to do this to ourselves,
Yes. Yes.
and that causes all kinds of physical and emotional and mental problems in the long run.
Yes.
And men particularly have it tough not showing vulnerability because that's what they're conditioned to do. We have that. We can show more vulnerability more. We're in our culture, in our cultures, not just American culture, but all of a
Yes.
lot. But women aren't supposed to show anger. Don't show anger. That's our huge thing. But then when we get involved with a man that doesn't want to show vulnerability, then he pushes us on that too, right? He doesn't want us to show our feelings because he's
Yes.
uncomfortable with them. So we get that double, we get the double. So what happens is they're uncomfortable with it, and so it's really hard for them to do it, right? And I was watching some talks online recently because it's getting to be more of a, kind of a talking point. These men are lost, and we need to serve them more in our culture, and this and that. And I'm not trying to sound like I don't have compassion. I have absolutely love and compassion for their predicament. Okay.
Yes.
Ultimately, where do you go when you're lost? You have to go inward to find yourself. And
Find yourself. Exactly.
that's what you got to do the work, guys. Okay. And the women are doing more of the inner work. They're ahead of them. Okay.
Yes.
And so that's why. And so that I realized while I was watching this talk, I thought, yeah, they're having an identity crisis. They don't know the role that
Yes.
they thought that they were going to have has changed, and they don't. It's kind of like when you have a midlife identity crisis, when your kids leave or you retire or something like that, people don't know what to do because their roles has changed. It's the same kind of a thing. They're having an identity crisis, and on a conscious level, and some and mostly on a subconscious level, most of them, they're angry at women. They're angry at
Yes.
us for changing. This
Yes.
is exactly what happened with my marriage too. He said he was angry at me for changing,
Yes.
but collectively they're angry at women for changing, and
Yes.
and because they don't want to change, and
This explains why they're now taking over the household um, task, which is like, well, it's your house too. Why can't you clean?
hello, we're teams, we both live here, it's not all my job and then you're helping me. No.
Yes. And the other thing, I don't remember if it was um if it was Brené Brown or Oprah, but it was funny saying that when mm, there is a divorce and there are children, people tend to idolize the guy that shows up for their kids, that takes them out. I'm like, and then that comment was, well, in the birth certificate, he is the father. That is what he's supposed to be doing. That is his role. So, what do you mean here? Why do you think that that role shouldn't happen? Or what is he supposed to be doing that he's not doing? Why are you idolizing this behavior? They're the father. It's the role
That's what we're supposed to be doing.
that they're supposed to
Yeah.
be doing. Just because they did it for generations and generations wrong
Right.
before doesn't mean that now you have to idolize is
He
the
doesn't
child
deserve
has
the title. This is his role. This is what you're supposed to be doing as a dad, you know?
yes, is a father and a mother there, and then we have our our
Yeah.
chromosomes are half and half.
Right. And so what I see changing, we were talking about camera when we were talking about how women's behavior with each other is changing. So, you know, years ago, what was the kind we competed with each other a lot, you know, and we weren't supportive of each other and we were competitive and we, you know, women a lot of times talk badly about each other, right? Because they were in competition. What were they in competition for? The man.
The men.
Okay. So instinctively, we wanted him for the protector. We wanted him for the provider instinctively. And then conditionally, with all, you know, Disney and, you know, the songs and everything. Oh, we got
Yes,
to have stuff. Well, Disney is itself now with all the really powerful, strong women characters. Okay,
yes,
great. Okay. And that's making a difference. That's another thing that's making a difference in the generations now, seeing that kind of stuff, you know? And so now it's happening, and I see it in a very big way here, a big way. More and more women are getting together and doing these women's circles, women friendships or circles. It's real
yes,
popular. And I go to a lot of them, and they've switched from, you know, this competitive thing because they don't need the competition doesn't exist because they can survive by themselves now. You know what I'm
yes,
saying?
yes,
So it's a bit, so that whole shift and that between women have changed. And so now they're collectively supporting each other and coming together for each other instead of, you know, picking at each other and competing like
yes.
that. That's beautiful. It's just
It
like,
is beautiful.
it's just like beautiful sisterhood thing. It's like the witches
Yes.
together, you know?
I was part of a mom's group when I was divorcing, and to me it was super difficult to get back to it because everybody was having the second child, the third child, and I was there going through divorce,
Mhm.
which was not easy. And one friend, one of the moms from the group said, "Why haven't you come back?" And I explained that to her, and she's like, "Oh, girl, you come anyway. When you are part of us. He's not."
That's right. That's
And
right.
not because he was a bad person, because again, I love with a lot of love and a lot of respect towards him. It just didn't work anymore. But they were like, "No, you're this is a mom's group. This is not a dad's group. So you keep on coming. We will support you. If you want to cry, we'll cry with you."
That's right.
And that was very helpful during that time. It's the only child, and it's difficult to socialize for them and to find people, other kids their age and etc. So it was what you're saying. It was very supportive, and then you find supportive there. Yeah, there's some people that are still conservative, but I think that society, as you say, is changing, is
Yeah.
taking
It's
this
really changing.
twist.
And then the fact that women are coming together, that's threatening. That's threatening to the men.
Yes.
It's on a subconscious. It's not that, you know what I mean? It's threatening to them because we're more powerful when we come together. I mean, look at historically when women came together, what happened? The patriarch like came, you know what I mean? They burned the witches, you know?
Yes,
I
yes,
mean, they're the male energy that not like the male energy that hasn't done their work. Men that have done the inner work and have, you know, healed their trauma and are more conscious and more enlightened support us. They think it's amazing. They're not threatened by the feminine energy. Okay.
no,
They love it. Okay. They're not threatened by the power of that when women become more empowered. But the men that haven't done the work absolutely are want to be on top. You know, that makes
exactly.
them feel safer to have the power. Okay. I've actually had men say out loud to me that they were afraid if women got more power that they would take revenge on them for being, yeah. And I
I
was like,
don't think so.
women
We're
don't
a
want
different
it. I
generation. The
said, women
people
don't
that
want
did the things are too old. We
I
won't
just
do that
want to
anything.
be, live in harmony with you guys. You know
Yes,
what I
no,
want to
and
be
it's not our nature. It's
no,
not our nature. We don't destroy. I mean, the ones
no,
that hunt were with them, and we were the ones doing the hard work.
exactly.
Um, but and I love our conversation. There are other questions that I would love to ask, but we're getting to the end, and I would love for you to have the opportunity to tell us how you help people, how people can contact you, and where they can find your book.
Okay, thank you. So I'm a mental fitness coach. I like that term better than mindfulness coach, but it's basically the same thing. My passion is to help people develop a healthy mental fitness belief system, just like we do around us. Okay. We know that we have to do certain things, eat good, not eat certain things, do these certain things of exercises or whatever. And we maybe don't like it all, but we stick to it if we want the results, right? We stick to it because science tells us, yep, this is what we're going to do. And then we see the results. We have delayed gratification. Don't expect immediate results because we know it's a process and it's going to take time. So that's what I teach people around mental fitness, right? Just because you start meditating doesn't mean you're going to do it perfect all of a sudden, all right? It takes time. And with meditation, I like to say real briefly that the best approach to meditation is super compassionate and loving, not critical and judging. And the goal should be refocus, not blame, because your mind will wander. It will do it all the time. So you just concentrate on refocus, wander, refocus, wander, refocus. If you go into it with that goal in mind, then you're going to have a higher success rate of being able to do it. Meditation trains your brain, okay? And then you learn to have more control over your thoughts. You learn when negative stuff comes in, you can turn it around instead of going down a rabbit hole with a negative storyline. Okay. I'm not
Mhm.
talking about suppressing feelings or toxic positivity. No. You learn the difference between your crazy thinking that you can turn around or the sensation in your heart that feels really strong and heavy that you need to. Okay. And it helps these holistic practices that I teach, breath work, meditation, mindfulness, moving your energy. These have been around thousands of years, okay? And they're still here because they work. And when you do them on a regular basis, you will see a huge decrease in your feeling of anxiety and sleep problems and be able to regulate, process and regulate your emotions more. So like emotional triggers and stuff like that, you'll have them less because you process your emotions. Emotional triggers are just mini PTSD. It's unhealed trauma.
Yes.
So there's all kinds of things you can start to use in your life. Real simple, something just deep breath in and humming. Both of those things activate a thing called the vagus nerve, which turns on your parasympathetic system, which is immediately a rest and restore and rebuild for your immune system. Anything that can take you over there, you should be doing regularly. And breath work and humming, it's like flicking a switch. Bink. Like you'll see if you're stressed and you can just breathe in really deep. Sometimes if in the car, I will breathe in and breathe the hum. And both of
Okay.
those things will calm you immediately. So my passion is to share these simple things that you can do to learn to be able to do all these things, calm your mind and body, regulate your nervous system, process your emotions. When you learn to do these things and understand it's very scientific, it's just a training, it's a process, and you will see dramatic, I mean, you'll see transformative results in your life. Absolutely. Everything in your life, like how you
Yes.
talk, how you listen, your professional, personal, physical, everything. And so that's my big passion. One of my biggest, I love quotes, and one of my favorite quotes, Dr. Carl Jung's got some fantastic quotes.
Yes.
And he's got this one I love. It says, I am not what happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And too many of us are back in the past of what happened to me, and I'm this way now because of what happened to me. And we stick with these labels that we're given, and it doesn't have to be that way. You can break out of it, and how your mind, your thoughts are so powerful. you can't imagine. That's
That
why the
is
labels
beautiful.
are really important, not to get rid of these labels. My book is called Mindful Metamorphosis. Oh, and by the way, I work with people one-on-one, private. My services are on a sliding scale. I ask people what can they can afford for an hourly session, and we work with that. And then I also give them ongoing support with WhatsApp. I send them different meditations and videos and audios and stuff like that about whatever they're working on, whatever pertains to them. I work with people one-on-one. I'm always looking to collaborate, and I can speak about all kinds of different topics. I work with online workshops and in person too. And what I've started to do also is go to senior living communities and teach them these things. Like monthly, I come in and I
Oh,
teach them these
beautiful.
things so they can learn how to handle their emotions and their stress because they're having a hard time, like everybody.
Yes. Yes.
So my book was published in May of this year. It is now available in Kindle, paperback, and hard English. I am now recording my Audible version, which will be available next May. And you'll be happy to know that my Spanish translation, Kindle and paperback, will be available on Amazon in just a couple of days. I just uploaded
Yay!
everything to it. I have a very, very, very good friend who is Colombian as well. Um, and she's an expert translator, has been translating books for 30 years. And she gave me a really great price and help me do payments because self-publishing, when you want to do all the different versions
Yes,
you're doing, is not cheap.
it's not.
So
I
yeah, you can
will
find
wait then for to buy my presents.
all the other stuff. So the Audible is in May, and then, like I said, the Spanish version is going to be available in just a couple of days. I'm just waiting for it to go live.
Yay!
My book is very applicable for a workbook, like a a companion workbook. So instead of doing a paper workbook, I'm going to do an online version of it. So I'm going to have a course, and it's going to be a workbook version of my book. Okay, and
Okay,
talking about different things, and then giving them a little bit of homework stuff to work on and come back and that kind of thing. And I'm also going to
awesome.
start doing a membership where people will pay $20 a month, and I will send them something inspirational, motivational, practice techniques, something to work on regularly, and then they could get discounts on the course and work with me if they want. So yeah, all that stuff's rolling out. You can contact, I also have a YouTube channel and a Facebook group called Mindful Metamorphosis and Instagram that I share inspirational, motivational stuff all the time, educational, and not just my own stuff, things that, experts, oh my God, this is a great video of Brene Brown, or this is an amazing video of Gabor Mate. You got to watch this or something, really great stuff.
Yes.
And so I share all that. My website is micheleschalin.com, and that's with one L on Michelle. And you can contact me through the website, through the Facebook group, through Facebook, my personal Facebook, Instagram. I'm available. People contact me all different ways.
Is there anything that you would like to leave the audience with?
Yes, that your thoughts are so important. I mentioned it several times. Your thoughts are what you think and how you talk to yourself and what you say out loud, your thoughts in general, period, all the way across the board, dictate your life. They write the script of your life. It is absolutely a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you say certain things, it will happen. Okay? Your thoughts are, your imagination, everything that happens here. Just like someone invents something, it has to be in here first before it comes out to the physical realm, right? It's the same thing with your life. Well, the biggest thing I would encourage you to do when you do these holistic practices in your life, it's easier to start paying attention and noticing your thoughts because before you go inward like that, you have these thoughts in the back of your mind that are running all the time and you don't even know they're going on. Okay.
Yes.
You start to become more aware and you learn to start being able to change and you will learn to cultivate more self-love and empower yourself and absolutely transform your life by getting a hold of your thoughts.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you for having
And
me.
and I will see you in March. And to you, who is listening and watching us on YouTube, thank you for tuning in. And don't forget, you came to the world because a greater force brought you here with love, to be loved and one and love one another. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye.
Hi, it's Maritza here. If you like this episode of My Accent is No Accident podcast and would like to listen more like this, subscribe wherever you're listening to it or watching it. Leave us a nice review and share with your friends, family, and network. Thanks for listening.